Brinkmanship or just plain law breaking? As the fallout over the government's decision to try and change the withdrawal agreement signed with the EU in January rolls into a seventh day, more leading figures weighed in to have their say. Today, the Justice Secretary refused to be interviewed or answer questions from this programme.
There's a potential breach of international law, Mr. Buckland.
Excuse me.
Are you happy about that?
But speaking to the BBC, he pushed back, saying it was just an insurance policy.
We are absolutely a rule of law country, always have been, always will be, but we are also a country where our parliamentary sovereignty, as returned to us by Brexit and as voted for by the British people in the recent general election, also matters hugely. And that is what this bill is all about.
Once again, it's this border between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland that's causing complications. The government says the Internal Markets Bill, which will override part of the withdrawal agreement, is needed to stop a trade barrier between Northern Ireland and the rest of the UK in the event of a no-deal Brexit. But that's not how the EU see it. Their chief negotiator used social media to contest the government's claims.
Protocol on Ireland and Northern Ireland is not a threat to the integrity of the UK. We agreed this delicate compromise with Boris Johnson and his government in order to protect peace and stability on the island of Ireland. We could not have been clearer about the consequences of Brexit.
The UK negotiator then responded to that, saying,
"On the protocol, we indeed negotiated a careful balance in order to preserve peace and the Belfast Good Friday Agreement. It is precisely to ensure this balance can be preserved in all circumstances that the government needs powers in reserve to avoid it being disrupted."
The EU is insistent that the UK's claims for needing this last-minute change are unfounded.
There is no blockade proposed, and that is the kind of inflammatory language coming from number 10, which is spin and not the truth. What is agreed in the withdrawal agreement and in the protocol on Northern Ireland and Ireland is that there will be limited checks on goods coming from GB into Northern Ireland because there is an agreement to prevent the need for physical border infrastructure on the island of Ireland between North and South.
The government's stance has now been criticised by 4 of the 5 living former Prime Ministers. Tony Blair and John Major today joined Theresa May and Gordon Brown in their condemnation from earlier this week. In a joint article, they said that overriding an international treaty was shameful, suggesting that rather than protecting the Good Friday Agreement, the government's action imperils it. And of the person hoping to become the next Prime Minister, Keir Starmer wrote today that he's not blind to the fact that this could be part of the government's negotiating strategy in the final weeks of talks, but that the move is wrong.
If the government will back down from this reckless approach, then we can look to supporting this bill. But as it stands, we'll be voting against the bill tomorrow because we cannot support the breaking of international treaties.
After a week of pressure and condemnation both at home and abroad, there's much at stake for the government as Parliament begins debating the bill tomorrow. All the while, more Brexit talks are due to take place this week, but they'll now be happening with the backdrop of this Sunday afternoon Twitter battle.
Well, we're joined now by Tony Blair's former Chief of Communications, Alistair Campbell. He was there during key moments of the Northern Ireland peace process, including the Good Friday Agreement. Alistair, welcome to the programme. Boris Johnson says the withdrawal agreement was negotiated at a torrid time when Parliament had bound his hands. It's understandable that he would seek to make changes once he's got a proper majority.
Well, that was the same agreement that he presented to the public and to the world as a fantastic triumph of his great negotiating skills. It was the same agreement that he told the public at the last general election was an oven-ready deal, that we were going to get the best possible deal for Britain. And now he seems to be dragging us towards no deal and doing it in a way that is, as Tony Blair and John Major have said today, doing massive and possibly irreparable damage to the reputation of the United Kingdom as a country that keeps its word and a country that abides by international law. And so I don't think there can be any defence of it. I watched Robert Buckland's interview this morning. I think that's the 8th different excuse / version of events / reason for doing it. This idea that it's some kind of fire alarm, that they've got to change the law in case they need to break the law in future. It is utterly shaming. And those Tory MPs who are going to be voting for this, they need to find a spine. 2, they need to find some principles, and they need to listen to John Major.
OK, well, John Major, Tony Blair and yourself are all passionate Remainers. Isn't this just a case of sour grapes? You've lost. Brexit's happening.
Well, I accept that that Brexit's happening, but Brexit has to happen in a way that doesn't do fundamental damage to the UK. Michael Howard is a passionate Brexiteer. Michael Howard does put virtually anything that Boris Johnson asks him to. He, Theresa May, I suspect if David Cameron wasn't so embarrassed at what he's done to the country, he'd be the 5th living Prime Minister to come out and call this out for what it is. People like John Major, in my experience, and indeed Tony Blair, they don't call out their successors lightly. In fact, Tony Blair sometimes tells me off for going a bit too far in the way that I put the boot into Boris Johnson. They came out today because they believe that what Boris Johnson has done and what his cabinet are doing in agreeing with it and what Tory MPs are doing if they back it, they are doing massive damage to our reputation and they are putting the Good Friday Agreement at risk.
Okay.
And let me say that John Major, Tony Blair, myself and many others know a hell of a lot more about the workings of the Good Friday Agreement than Boris Johnson appears to.
Well, Alistair Campbell, a lot of people don't believe that your friend Tony Blair is in any position to give lectures on international law, given the controversy surrounding the Iraq War in 2003. Well,
people can believe what the hell they want, and people are entitled to their views about that, and most people who have a view on that have expressed it. And we can go over all that if you want to. We're talking about the most important change in this country's constitution in our lifetime. And we're talking about it being done in a way that is going to do irreparable damage to our country, its economy, our society, our politics.
I'm very sorry, Alistair Campbell. We're running out of time. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you.